Brothers and sisters, good morning. Today we read on Romans, the book of Romans. This is a very important book. The book of Romans tells us a lot of essential concepts about gospel. Let's talk about the Roman church, how it came about. On the day of Pentecost, that's in Acts chapter 2, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. And there were people from Rome at that time. So we believe that they brought the gospel back to Rome, including Priscilla and Aquila. They were from the Roman church, sorry. Some features about this church, Roman church. The first one, Paul did not go there personally, in person. So he was in Rome in Acts chapter 28. He was a prisoner. So at this time, he had not been to Rome. But this church was already established. The second thing, it was the Jews who took the gospel to Rome. Because the Jews from Rome went to Jerusalem, observed the day of Pentecost, then they experienced the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, then they took the gospel back to the Rome. So at first, the Roman church was mainly of the Jews. They believe in Jesus, and yes, they highly regard the laws. After a period of time, the Roman king drove out all the Jews out of Rome. But after a period of time, the Jews came back. But now, this Roman church is become like a Gentile church. So it's the core of the greatest emperor at the time. So when Paul wrote this letter, basically Paul was writing this to the Roman church as well as to the church, to the whole world. On one hand, he need to care about the Jews' background, and also the background that the church is mainly of Gentile. So it was really tricky to write this letter. Read verse 1 to 7. The gospel is the power and the promise of God. That's the first paragraph, verse 1 to 7. How could Paul write the letter to both the Jews and the Gentiles? He needs to care for both sides, both parties. So first of all, he makes mention how this gospel came about. It was promised before through his prophets in the Holy Scriptures. It's the seed of David. So he was speaking to the Jews. And declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead. Verse 4. So we do need the power of God. Rome destroyed the Greek emperor. But Rome, the whole country, was influenced and also took on the culture of Greek. They talk about knowledge, about head knowledge. So this gospel must be of the power of God. So if it talks about this, the promise of the prophets or maybe a seed of David, so it's only concerned certain people. It's not about everyone. But here he has the power, resurrection of from the dead, and this power is to show that this faith is to go all nation. That's what he wants to talk about from verse 1 to 7. Then later on, he will talk on the state of the Roman Church, verse 8. He gave thanks for the Roman Church. The church was established without Paul going there in person. And the number was quite of decent size. Verse 8. Your faith is spoken of throughout the whole earth, the whole world. Because the faith is spoken of throughout the whole world, that means that the size is of considerable size. So why would Paul want to teach the church again? What was the problem of such a church? Yes, they had faith for sure. But they go off track about the faith. Something mixed with it. Especially the conflict between faith and laws. They believe in the gospel, but they also observe the Jews, the law. So they are the Gentiles. Why should they observe the Jews' custom, the laws? Because it was the Jews who shared the gospel. That's why this gospel is of strong, like Judaism. On one hand, the faith is well spoken throughout the whole world. But on the other hand, the faith is not strongly based. So he gave thanks for the Roman church. So he prayed that he will be able to go to Rome. Verse 10. Making request if by some means now at last I may find a way in the will of God to come to you. Paul wanted to go there, to go to Rome. And the plan of God was to let him go. But he was unable to go. So he prayed that the plan of God will go forth. So he kept praying for this. So what did he do then? Verse 11, for I long to see you that I may impart to you some spiritual gifts so that you may be established. That is that. Verse 11. When our faith is not established, it's not that we don't have faith, but our faith is not established. It's not strong. We do need spiritual gifts. So he was to go there to impart to you some spiritual gifts. The spiritual gifts are to demonstrate the power of God. So that people can see that, oh yes, God is indeed in our midst. Then people will pursue God even more. So spiritual gifts are important. It's not our goal. Our goal is to know God more. But through spiritual gift, our faith can be established and consolidated so that we can know God more. So Paul was going to the Roman church in order to impart to them spiritual gifts so that they may be established in faith and they may be encouraged. And verse 13, and then there will be fruit. Have fruits. So in this paragraph, Paul was saying that he was desperate to go there. So basically, he wanted to start some spiritual gifts lessons from today's angle. So he was preaching, and at the same time, he was also imparting the spiritual gifts so that the power of God may be manifest even more. Verse 14. I'm a debtor both to the Greeks and to barbarians, both to wise and unwise. Paul was preaching the gospel because he considered himself a debtor to people. If you are a debtor, how would you feel? No, you are not comfortable, you are unease. If you owe people money, you don't want to see your creditor, right? But then you know that you must repay the money. So when he sees the creditor, he was like, oh, I really want to repay you the money. And if he has repaid, when he has repaid the money, then he will be settled, he will be relieved. That's the heart of Paul. Everyone, to him, he considered them that, I must preach the gospel to you. If I don't preach the gospel to you, he will be in great pain. If he preach the gospel, then he will find the comfort. That's the heart of Paul. We must ask God for such a heart. Especially now we're in this season. The new house of Pastor Joshua and Simo at night, during the day they saw the Noah's Ark, and at night they saw a red line. The Dingle Bridge, there will be a light, a red light. And scarlet cord represents salvation. So it's the time of evangelism. We ask God for such a passionate heart to preach the gospel. So on one hand, he considered himself debtor to everyone. On the other hand, he understood that regarding the attitude of evangelism, most people find it embarrassing to share the gospel. Maybe you have been in your workplace for many years, but no one knew that you were a Christian. Some brothers and sisters will say that I'm new to the marketplace, or I don't have many testimony, rather not to tell anyone that I'm a Christian. And then if you are higher rank in the office, then you think, okay, maybe I need to be like, take a more objective position, objective positions in religion. So if I focus on one religion, then the people of the other religion will arise and attack me. So whether you're of low position or high positions, then people don't know that you are a Christian for various reasons. Verse 16, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jews first and also for the Greek. Paul understood that many people are ashamed of the gospel, but he said that I am not. Why would people be ashamed of the gospel? The gospel is about Jesus Christ. It's about Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth. But Nazareth was considered of low position to Jews. They are of lowly place. So if you talk about Jesus Nazareth, it's shameful. if you want to talk to Rome about Jesus the Nazareth, but then the Jews is already like second-class citizens in Rome. When Paul was taken charge, the first time he said, "I am a Roman citizen." To others, then people will consider him of higher rank. But for the Jews, if they are to share the gospel, it's really hard. And they say, "Oh, if I need to preach the gospel to the Rome, no, I'm of lower class." The Jews, if you want to share about Jesus the Nazareth, you think you're of lower class. If you want to share with the gospel with the Rome, you also think that I'm of lower class. That's why they were ashamed of the gospel of Christ. It was the same before and as now. May God help us. Paul was not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes. And then it goes on to talk about why man needs gospel. Verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Unjust and unrighteous. Ungodliness, that means we in our hearts we do not turn to God, and unrighteousness is about our conduct, our behavior, and that's the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all these people. That means they suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. Verse 19. So because we have conscience, we know that there is a God. So in the past, I have this teacher from the northeast of China. He says that in Taiwan is like subtropical weather. So it's like always like spring in Taiwan. So you don't know the power of nature. But in the northeast of China, the 4 seasons are obvious. And man has to humble oneself before nature. We need to humble in nature. So in the winter, the whole land was barren, and suddenly overnight, then the spring, everything springs up. The power of God is demonstrated, it's evident. You cannot say that there is no God. We are without excuse. But what are the problems of man? Verse 21. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful. Why did you worship idols? Why would you think that you should worship God? Worship idol because you believe that there are some gods, so that's why you go and worship gods. But you know that gods exist. In your spirit, you realize that, yes, there is God. But you do not worship the one and only God. Then that's your problem. God created you, but you do not worship him. You do not glorify him as God. and you worship idols. Those a lot of idols were humans. The Chinese or the Taoism, they worship some dead people. They are dead. How could they protect you? You worship dead people. You worship some creatures, animals. How strange. How weird is that? Verse 21. Become futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So such thoughts were worthless. You know God has created you, but you do not worship Him. You do not glorify Him as God. But on the contrary, you worship something else. It's foolish thoughts. Professing to be wise, they became fools. Verse 22. And changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man. All man's problem arise here. And here 3 verses talk about give them over, give them over. Therefore, God also give them up to uncleanness in the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves. Verse 24. Give them up. So when men worship idols, you knew they were idols and you continue to worship them. That's spiritual adultery. Verse 25, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie and worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator who is blessed forever. That's first time God give them up. As you choose to worship idols, you choose to commit spiritual adultery, then physically you will commit adultery. That's verse 26. For this reason, God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against natural nature. Women were created to multiply and to help men. But here she exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Let other men, many men satisfy her sexual desire. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the man burned in their lust for one another. This is about homosexuality. That's God give them up the second time. And the third time, God give them over. And verse 28, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind to do those things which are not fitting. They committed spiritual adultery. Then they have adultery between men and women. And then at the end is the confusion, messing up of all relationship. And then coming up is all about chaos in relationship. Verse 29, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, conduct, malicious, that means your nature is malicious. Covetousness, that means you covet things, you are greedy. Malicious, you have really wicked mind. Full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness, they are whisperers, evil-minded. Full of envy. Envy is like, how can you have things that is better than me? No, you are not allowed. If you want to get this, I will kill you. So this is envy. Murder. You mistreat me. You mistreat me, I kill you. Strife. Trying to fight, gain something. Deceit, full of evil, full of envy, murder, strifes. Deceit, that means our schemes. You want to have this, you're full of envy, and then that's why you will do all sorts of things to gain it, your deceit. Evil-mindedness. Oh, they do it because there is a purpose. Everything in your mind is negative. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedience to parents. Whisperers and backbiters, they are one group. So they whisperer and then they also backbiter. Haters of God and violent. You hate God because you think that God doesn't do right. You are proud. To man, to God, you are the same. Proud boasters. Pride. Proud, it says that people are not good. Other is less worse than you. And boaster is like, I'm better than others. It's the same. Inventors of evil things, disobedience to parents. All these are displeasing to God. Undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful. Verse 31. That's the era of Roman Empire, and is our era as well. In summary, Paul made a summary here, verse 32. Who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. In the marketplace, there's a certain group of people suffer a lot. They take bribe. You will be scared. You may be exposed. People will report you. So what do? Everyone must take bribe. If you don't take any bribe, then in the future you could be someone who betrayed us. You know that you should not do it, but then you do it, and also you approve those who practice them. If you do not do wicked things as I do, you may betray me, you may report me, you may expose me. This is a corrupt generation. That's why the gospel of God is for everyone to turn to the truth. We are corrupt. No one may boast. The heart of man is deceitful above all things. There is no one righteous, not even one. From spiritual adultery, physical adultery, to chaos in relationship. Unless you have faith. The just shall live by faith, verse 17. And this faith comes from the seed of David. From the power of the resurrection from the dead. It's the promise of all prophets. May God help us. We will know the essence of gospel. And be bold. We shall be bold to share it. Let's worship our God.